Mr. Educator. Now call the meeting of the Winterville Town Council for Monday, November 9th, 2020 to order.
Somebody needs to let the dog out.
Let the dogs out.
Okay, I think we're good. I'm sorry about that. It wasn't us.
We now have our invocation by Councilman Moore.
Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your blessings. Thank you for everything you do for us each and every day. And be with our country, be with our state, be with our community. Walk with us and talk with us tonight. Give us wisdom to serve our town. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. It's good to see everybody here tonight, and also welcome to those tuning in online for our town council meeting. We welcome all of you, and we appreciate your interest in our government by our members being here tonight, and also for those of you who are online and for our staff. Now we're down to the approval of the agenda.
Ricky Hines make a motion to approve the agenda if there's no correction from Ms. Parker.
No, sir, there are no corrections.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Councilman Hines, seconded by Councilman Moore to approve the agenda. Now we have the poll.
Okay, I will poll the board, and I would ask if you would let me say your name first. That would be great. I'll start with Councilman Moore.
Yes.
Councilman Hines.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Robertson.
Yes.
Councilman Smith.
Yes.
And Councilman Moy.
Yes.
I believe we have all in favor of the approval of the agenda as submitted.
Okay. The first order of business is a proclamation honoring Veterans Day. And I did run it off, but I didn't bring with me. You want to read it? Mr. Harvey, will you read it?
Be glad to. This is a proclamation honoring Veterans Day, and this year, since we're unable to celebrate quite like we normally do, it's even more important that we do honor them this way. Whereas America was founded on the principles of liberty, opportunity, and justice for all, and whereas America was called on her men and women in uniform to protect our national security, to advance our national interests, and to preserve our rights and freedoms. And whereas on Veterans Day, we recognize the men and women of our armed forces who have valiantly defended these values throughout our nation's history. And whereas on Veterans Day, we also remember those whose sacrifice ended in permanent injury or death, yet their spirit remains in continued preservation of our freedoms and the promise of liberty established as an example for all oppressed persons of the world. And whereas in honor of these dedicated men and women, we pledge continued defense of our nation so that our sacrifice will stand before the entire world as a tribute to the spirit and determination of people dedicated to the principles of freedom and democracy. Now, therefore, the town of Winterville currently has veterans living within its boundary. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Winterville Town Council does hereby proclaim November 11, 2020, Veterans Day in the town of Winterville, North Carolina, and calls upon our citizens to observe this day with appropriate manners in honor of veterans, both living and deceased, who have served this country so willingly to to preserve the principles of justice, freedom, and democracy, to fly the flag and let our veterans know we appreciate their great sacrifice. In witness whereof, I do set my hand and cause the seal of Winterville to be affixed this 9th day of November 2020. Veronica W. Robertson, Mayor Pro Tem.
We are proud of our veterans, and we do honor them. We know that had it not been for their sacrifice of their time, their efforts, and their lives, that our country would not be what it is today. And we do honor these people on Veterans Day. We're sorry that we couldn't celebrate like we normally do, because we usually have a big crowd out there. And we do appreciate the group that has, Mr. Moore, the group that has been putting on that program every year. But we do realize the struggles that we're in right now and everything. All right. Moving right along.
I had a comment, I'm sorry. Terry, how many employees did we have as the town that are veterans?
Full-time and part-time?
Yes.
If you add part-time, a full part-time complement, which obviously some of them would be seasonal, it's over 100.
Over 100, okay, all right. So thank you to them, a special thank you to them for
Absolutely.
both service, to us and to the United States. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our public comment period. Do we have any public comments?
I don't believe so. I'm looking at Mr. Harvey, and I don't think he's had any requests for public comment.
There were none submitted to me.
So I can just skip reading this long thing. Okay. Our consent agenda. Mr. Boyd's pleasure.
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as is.
Ricky Hines second the motion.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Councilman Moy and seconded by Councilman Hines to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll poll the board. Councilman Moore,
Yes.
Councilman Hines,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Robertson,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilman Moy.
Yes.
Excellent. I believe we have all votes in favor of the approval of consent agenda as submitted.
I noticed that under that release and refund of taxes, it was a refund that was being made because of the veterans discount. So of course I called the tax office today to find out what was the veterans discount. And it applies to veterans that have 100% disability. And it was a sizable percentage. I won't say 50%, but it was a sizable percentage of that. So I would encourage those in our community that are veterans that have 100% disability to please apply for it, because you do have to make application. Some of them probably already know about it, take advantage of it. But if there's any that don't know about it, please do that, because you can't, I think you get approved for next year, but it is available. And I noticed the amounts were, they were nice amounts. They're sizable amounts. All right, we'll go to our old business, the Wonderful Human Relations Board.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could clarify something with Councilman Hines, did you ask me how many employees were veterans?
Yes.
Okay, clearly since the pandemic started, my hearing has been affected, not only by wearing a mask, but by...
I was thinking that was a big number.
Well, I appreciate Chief Wilhite just text me and let me know that that's what you said, and I apologize, because obviously I did not hear that. So with that said, I know we have several that either have served full-time in the military or have been in the reserves. I don't have a specific number, but I would say, including our full-time and our part-time, we have, I would say, several, more than several, that are serving or have served. So I apologize for not hearing that correctly, but I'm glad I got a chance to clarify that.
And
'Cause I didn't-
again, just thank you to the men and women of the town that have served.
Yes,
And we appreciate
absolutely.
their service. I know we usually have something, so again, just from the council, we just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll make sure we pass that along, and I'll make sure next time, for next meeting, I have more coffee than I've had today. So thank you for your patience. Mayor Pro Tem, I have prepared for council's review a draft of an ordinance that actually creates the Human Relations Board. Previously, I have called it Human Relations Council, but as I got into the meat of trying to put this ordinance together, it was a lot of council, so town council, human relations council. So I chose to change that to board, so the delineation was a little bit was a little bit clearer in terms of who we were talking about. I fashioned this ordinance after the verbiage that's currently in the code for the inactive tree board and the stormwater committee. The planning board, board of adjustment, they both have statutory references that outline what those two boards do. So the verbiage itself is very closely aligned with the other two volunteer boards that are mentioned in the code. And with that said, you'll see that it's a little more generic than like the bylaws will be, because the bylaws will really get into more of the meat of what the duties and objectives are. But I did leave things like meeting date, meeting time, et cetera, more general, so as if it needs a change, it doesn't have to come back before council. The Human Relations Board can actually make those changes accordingly.
Discussion? I just would like the only thing I saw that I noticed that our initial board would be like 2 people for 1 year and 2 people for 2 years, and then 2 people for what, 3 years?
Yes, ma'am.
And I just feel like we ought to change it and just do half and half. 3 people for, the term is for, a term of office is 2 years or 3 years?
After the initial, it will be a term of 2 years.
2 years.
Yes.
Then to do it half and half, rather than that would be 3 different groups of people.
Right.
That we would have. And I offer that as a suggestion,
And I wasn't tied specifically to that. It was a suggestion that was contained in several sets of other bylaws that I actually saw. So certainly I'm amenable to any changes council would like to see.
And since the board is small, you're only talking about 3 people. 3 people on, then next time around, 3 people might go off. I think you can do consecutive terms, can't you?
Yes, ma'am.
So it doesn't mean that all 3 of them will go off unless it was a reason that they were going, leaving the board. That's the only suggestion that I have.
Right.
Any others?
I was gonna ask, basically what we have in place is basically do we have anybody local like Greenville or Farmville or Winterville has a committee like this, a board?
Greenville has a long-standing Human Relations Council. When I looked initially at the makeup, I looked at not just Greenville's because they're a much bigger community, so their board makeup is much different. I tried to look at comparable size jurisdictions in addition to jurisdictions located throughout the state, just to see what the composition of these boards were and how large they were. And I do find that the larger the group, the more difficult sometimes it is to get decisions through. So I felt like for us in the size of Winterville, a smaller group is more advantageous for us, but certainly I'm open to changes the council would like to see.
So in order for them to submit a plan in March, that means that they need to get to work.
Well, clearly, we don't even have a board, so it is highly unlikely that a plan would be submitted by March 2021, but certainly after the board gets in place and underway, I would certainly think a plan could be submitted of goals and objectives by 2022.
And really, our board would probably, would be larger because of the student members?
Yes, no, currently
Because they're non-voting.
I still have them as non-voting, but yes, the membership would be larger than 6, obviously, incorporating those. And that, just because they don't vote, certainly it doesn't mean they can't participate in discussion. Currently, until council directs differently, the council liaison is also a non-voting member. If you all choose to change that, then certainly when we get down into the bylaw draft, which would be next month, assuming this passes tonight, then we can make those changes accordingly.
And they will be committed to attend the council budget meeting that we have yearly.
Well, yeah, because, you know, anybody can come to the budget meeting.
Right?
And they would serve on the council, but it would just not be voting members. They would, you know, be like sitting in, they could give their perspective on an issue if an issue was being discussed. I think it's very important that we do have that input from that younger generation, that, you know, we see things one way, and they sometimes can bring another perspective in on an issue.
It's interesting. I think in recent weeks and months, we've definitely seen the influx of the younger populations, and particularly students, in a lot of the national things we've got going on currently. So I certainly think it's an important part of the things we're trying to accomplish and achieve.
Greenville includes representatives from ECU, and I think Pitt, but I'm not sure, I forget now.
I think I worded it such that it would be from high schools and universities that serve Winterville, so certainly that would include both
Right.
Pitt and ECU.
We need a motion to adopt this ordinance, or,
If you all are ready to adopt it, we will definitely need a motion. I mean, a vote,
okay.
which includes a motion. Thank you.
I would like to make a motion that we accept the information that was given to us on this proclamation.
So, would it be to accept it or to adopt the ordinance? We would be adopting this ordinance, right? Or do we have to have a public
Correct.
hearing on an ordinance?
No, ma'am.
Adoption, okay.
That would be my motion to adopt the ordinance.
And I'll second it. It's been moved by Councilman Moy and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Robertson to adopt the ordinance establishing our Human Relations Board. Now we're ready for the poll.
Okay, Councilman Moore,
Yes.
Councilman Hines.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Robertson.
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilman Moy.
Yes.
I believe we have all votes in favor of approving the ordinance creating or establishing the Winterville Human Relations Board as submitted.
I appreciate the board's support on this. It kind of helps it stay in as part of our community by adopting the ordinance. Our next item is new business, no parking on the east side of southbound West Railroad Street. This is also an ordinance.
I do believe either Assistant Manager Williams or Chief Wilhite will be presenting that item.
I'm prepared to do so. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I know if you read what's in the agenda, it might be a little confusing. That's the clerk's doing. I will call it no parking on the curb side of the southbound lane between Depot and Main. If you remember, our new roadway track has the angled parking in front of all the businesses, but we still have an area of parallel type parking along the curb nearest to the railroad. And when both of those things are happening at the same time, we found that provides a little bit of a safety hazard, people backing out of the angled parking areas. That would also include marking of the curb and signage to make everybody aware that that's not going to be a parking spot anymore. And repainting of the street as the old parking spots are showing through.
It's definitely a problem. You would not believe how many people went down the wrong direction on both sides of the railroad track. Today, a police car was parked in that same space, and a person tried to run right straight into him.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, he turned his light on, and the person didn't realize they could go that one way, the wrong way. Definitely a problem, those two streets, about the wrong direction. And I was against to begin with, and I went along with it. And I tell you what, it's created some problems for people who have always gone down those streets. Just a comment.
My only issue is the signage. I'm really not in favor of putting any signs up there. I realize we can mark the street.
I think
It seems like there's about 99 no parking signs on Ames Street. I know that's a way over exaggeration, but they are very distasteful. They're never weed eated around. They look terrible. And I wouldn't want downtown Winterville to have a bunch of no parking signs. I don't know if there's a way of painting the curb, maybe putting no parking and lettering across there, but I would hate to see us put a no parking sign.
if I'm not mistaken, and Chief, correct me, we will have to have a sign of some sort in order for it to be enforceable. I do agree that the signs on Ames Street, I'm not sure why they don't get weeded around, and we can certainly address that.
Because nobody at A.G. Cox has a weed eater.
Okay, we can certainly try to address that. Chief, do you see, I do think we have to have a sign.
I don't mean that ugly. I'm just saying, we put those signs up, and I know they were needed. I know people were parking on Ames Street, but those signs look terrible. They're not, some of them aren't straight. They're, like I said, they got grass growing up on them. I know I'm bitching and moaning about it, but it's one of them nights.
I think when we get those marking parking spaces by the railroad, when that's gone, people won't park there as much. Because last week I parked there because I saw the white parking spaces painted up. And that's why I parked there, because I felt like it was all right. And it might be that some people are parking there because they do feel that it's all right because there are markings for parking spaces.
We've definitely, yes, that paint came back through quicker than we had hoped, so we're definitely going to have to make some asphalt changes and make some more permanent changes so that you can't see that or get rid of that altogether. And Ben, you may want to jump in. We didn't mill that area, as I recall, so.
That is correct. When we did the repair, we just paved that portion that we had to dig out and redo, but we top coated the rest. And as you said, the old lines are kind of coming through there due to the traffic and just age. What we have is we'll go through and grind those down a little more and then paint them black as well to hopefully get rid of any remnants along that area. And to the maintenance of that corridor, that track is maintained by us, and the gentleman weed eats around all of our signs on those corridors that we maintain, so he will certainly do that as well.
Chief Wilhite, you still there?
I am.
I was wondering if you knew of an enforcement mechanism that would involve no sign, no erection of a no parking sign. I'm not aware of one, but that doesn't mean there isn't one.
I would have to look into that. I don't know if a erectable sign is required, especially if it's painted no parking on the actual roadway itself. I don't know that you need a sign as well. I'll look into that.
Keen, you don't know, do you?
I've actually seen it both ways, with the sign and without, but to know for absolute certain, I think we probably need to look at it to make sure a sign's not required. I don't think it is, but we need to look at it.
I've seen the no parking painting like in a fire lane, but that's a little bit different animal, and usually that's in a private vehicular
Well,
area.
Well, what about just one no parking sign.
We could do no parking from here to or,
Right.
here to
Yeah, and just
somewhere.
one sign, and then with the painted stripes down, so that will be signage up, so that they'll know there's no parking along with the stripes, and so that'll cover everything, but you won't have so many signs in one area.
Right,
you know,
and we
If
can
could just
definitely
put
check
down
on
one.
whether one's required at all, but we'll
Uh-huh.
get back with council definitely and let you know.
If we have to do a sign, let's try to do one that's tasteful, being it's downtown.
Definitely, and we'll get back with council and let you know what the regulations and/or law say on that.
So,
My question is, I just wanted to make sure I understand the location. We're speaking of right here in front of the town hall, the station,
Public safety building.
where the flag is at, right there in front of the flag. When you
Other
first
side,
turn in,
Other side,
right there in front of, towards, on the other side.
right.
The railroad
That's on
tracks.
the west side then, right?
Correct.
The railroad track.
They call it south. And the chief said it was between Main Street and Depot.
I believe it's, correct me, folks, Ben, Chief, it's the west side of railroad
The railroad.
between Depot
Yes,
and
yes, it says
Main.
west side.
In the southbound lane.
Okay, and when we're speaking of,
Yes.
when you get to the end of that, when you get to the end of it, it's right there at the stop sign.
He's right. It says no parking on the east side of southbound. You're right.
I do,
Should say the west side.
we will make sure that the physical description is cleared up, so it's obvious where we're talking about, but where we installed the diagonal parking, it's the opposite side of that, where we no longer allow parking.
Okay, so it's on the west side of the railroad street at the end where the little biscuit place used to be at, right there in front
Correct.
of it.
And what, again, one of the challenging things is some of that old paint has bled through what we did in that work, so that's causing some confusion as well.
we could try, and then if it didn't work, we could go back and revisit it and see if something else would work. I don't know, I'm in favor of putting it on the pavement. And, because we do have summer coming, and we do have our breweries and that walking traffic downtown, and, more traffic downtown, so therefore it's gonna be more cars downtown.
Well,
And
what-
so-
well, I'm
Someone's
sorry.
likely to use it, just like me, because we see the marking for a parking space.
Well, one thing is clear, if we don't have it in the ordinance, we cannot enforce it,
Okay.
so.
All right, what's the board's pleasure as far as this ordinance is
I
concerned?
make a motion that we approve no parking on the west side of the southbound West Railroad Street. The ordinance, ordinance 20-0.
Just to be clear, it's the east side of that
Okay.
stretch of road.
Say that again?
It is the east side. I think Councilman Moore said the west side.
On Railroad Street?
It's the east side of the road.
It's the east side of the road.
It's the east side
Oh, the street itself? Okay, I see.
the east side of that road.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're talking about now. It's the east side of the street, not of the railroad.
The east side of the road. That's where the parking is.
Okay.
I suppose it depends on which way you're standing.
Well, north, south, east, west.
East is always east.
Entertainment for the night.
Ben knows that I struggle with north, south, east, west. We will make sure the
Side.
description is clear.
On the
Motion
side of
made.
West Railroad Street that's near the railroad. Let me put that again. All right, you made a motion. Second?
Ricky Hines has seconded.
Okay. A motion has been made to, adopt ordinance 20-0112, by Mr. Moore and seconded by Mr. Hines. We're ready for the vote.
Okay, Councilman Moore,
Yes.
Councilman Hines,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Robertson,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilman Moy.
Yes.
I believe we have all votes in favor of approving the ordinance regarding Railroad Street and no parking as presented.
Okay. Other agenda items, downtown noise, and Councilman Moore, you gonna speak about that?
I was informed by a resident that our present ordinance says that you cannot hear any business 100 feet from that business. And I contacted our staff, and since that time, there's been no problems with that. I asked the person on the agenda, said yes, and he backed off later on. So, thank you. I've heard no complaints since then. The person said, he asked me to begin with, and it was put on, and he said, take it off.
Okay,
It's better. Thank you very much. But 100 feet, that's you know, present ordinance is 100 feet
Okay.
from any business, but just a thought. That's all.
all righty, thank you very much.
Um, Can I talk about the library report? Okay.
Yes, ma'am, it's your
Um,
meeting.
Mr. Moore said that he had people ask him about the hours the library was open, and I reached out to Greg Needham, who is the library director, and he sent us back an update on our library. And it's open from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and Saturdays from 1 to 5 p.m. Right now, computers, of course, they're not doing that right now with it. They've only been doing that at Carver. But 1,754 visits to the library in October, and 2,720 items were checked out. And that seems like a lot to me, considering the times that we're in. And compared to October of 2019, this is just 39% less. So our citizens and the surrounding citizens are really making use of the library to check out books and, you know, things like that, of course, that they can do. And also, he said that the CARES Act gave them some money, and I think I told you about that we're going to get a stronger Wi-Fi signal at the library, so the parking lots could be used by people bringing their children up to do schoolwork or whatever, you know, with the Wi-Fi signal. And of course, as things go on, of course, things will be getting back to normal as much as possible. They can only allow, I think he said in his report, 8 people in there at a time because of COVID and the space and requirements. But of course, they're doing like everything else, moving slowly back and doing their effort to stop the spread. And while I'm talking about library, I also want to tell you about Mideast, since I am the representative on Mideast. We completed the evaluation of the executive director, and they've also asked us to turn in any topics that we would like to see a speaker brought in or for Mideast to work on for our community. So if you have any topics that you'd like to see Mideast work on, or you have a topic that you would like maybe you feel like it would be good for us to have a session on, please let me know. All right. Any other agenda items?
I'd like to ask Ms. Parker something about broadband, you know, our internet access. As far as the town, do we have open Wi-Fi here, public open Wi-Fi?
We do. We have a public Wi-Fi that historically will kick someone off after 30 minutes. And the reason for that is to ensure that all people who want to use it try to have access.
Okay.
I did talk with Mr. Needham after it became apparent that they were going to install another Wi-Fi or a Wi-Fi as well. So we're trying to coordinate those efforts, take some of those timeframes off. The challenge with that is, obviously, we want people to be able to use it and use it as it's needed. But then the more that one person is out there and using it for an extended period of time, I mean, obviously more than one person can use it, but it's unlikely you would have successfully, let's just say 15 people using it simultaneously. So I'm trying to work with and make sure that we can kind of work in tandem with what the library is going to install to try to provide the best service. But yes, we do have.
All right. I was just wondering, would it be like something that'll be used while we're in business, as far as the town is in business?
Yeah, it's available all the time.
Okay.
Yes. You could pull up right outside and you should be able to see it as the Town of Winterville public Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Again, that's also not a secure Wi-Fi,
Right.
but most public, as you well know, aren't.
Right, it's
So
not, right. Okay.
And one thing else about the library board, this is my last term that I can serve on the board. Someone else has to come on. I think I've got, another year to serve. So, board members we have, prior to me becoming a real member of the board, we talked about the importance of having a representative from Winterville. So we need to be thinking about someone putting their name in the hat to go to the county commissioners to make sure that Winterville has representation on that library board.
It's certainly been nice having a council person on the library board to be able to keep up with what's happening.
Well, I attended for about 2 years before I got up.
Right.
Because they could not enlarge the board.
Right.
And so therefore, I attended meetings, and then I got appointed to the board. Basically, I put my name in the hat, make sure that the next time the opening came. But our county commissioner, Lauren White, she was on the board. I don't know if they're reassigning things, but she is on the board. But also, we felt like Winterville had needed representation. So we need to make sure that when it comes around again for an appointment, that we have Winterville represented either by a council member or a citizen, someone who's truly interested and loves that library. It is a jewel in our community. Yeah. Okay.
I have 3 items for future agenda items. One is, it's in the paper several times about the new building at A.G. Cox. I'd like to see if we can see the plans that the county has. It's just going to be a 2-story building, just an idea with just information. Second, I'd like at some point to put an agenda to talk about Park Street. It's a street in town that's not paved. What can we do to that? What are the options? Third is ask Mr. Jones to give us an update of what homeowners associations are active in Winterville, even before COVID. Just give us an idea how many we have that are active. So many times they said homeowners association, but how many really active? That's my question.
And of course, I'll just state that sometimes people's perception of active may be a little different than what we might perceive it to be. So we'll try to get a sense of those that regularly meet. And
remember the deal we have with the chickens?
I do. And actually, that still comes up occasionally.
I've heard
So,
it.
yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
No.
All right. My question is, do we have anything in place wherein we recommend that a home that is vacant, and we ask it to be boarded up, and we have it boarded up, and once they go through all of that pain and trouble, go through and board it up, you go by there weeks later, someone done took it down and made access to get inside anyway. Do we have anything in place? Because the reason why we chose to have it done was to keep people out of it, main reason especially, and in creating activities or a situation where something can happen, into an abandoned home like that. But I know of a home that was boarded up. It was boarded up very nicely. And I'll go by now, and someone have made access or taken it down.
Is that
Do
all?
we have anything in place that if we chose to do something like that, to let it be known that they don't need to?
I can add a little bit to that. Once a structure, if it's abandoned, has been boarded up pursuant to an order, we put they call it a placard. It's basically a sign that goes on there that says, this building can't be used for any kind of habitation. It's basically a warning sign. And if that sign is either torn down or the building's opened back up, I'm pretty certain they're subject to penalties, to include criminal penalties.
Yes, I was just going to say, we can definitely check into that, but we will continue to insist on compliance from the property owner. we do our level best, try not to be the one that boards up a home. We try to get the property owner, because it's their responsibility to do that. So if I could just get the address from you, what street it's on, we'll make sure that we address it accordingly.
Yes. Do you need that now? You want me to give it to you?
Whatever's good for you.
It's right there on the corner of Boyd and Myrtle Street.
Okay, we will make sure we look right into that. Thank you.
And I know that we do have, I wouldn't say a problem, but we do have some people that are walking our neighborhoods that, you know, we consider, I guess, the invisible homeless people that are, you know, early in the morning, real early in the morning, the times when everybody else is in bed, they may be traveling around the town and they could be taking shelter in there. I think the house near me, I think that's what happens there, you know, at the times when nobody is moving around the community. I've seen some.
That's a good point. I'll discuss this with Chief Wilhite and Mike Brown, and particularly try to keep an eye open for, as you say, those times where most folks are in bed asleep, and just try to see if we can start to get we have an inventory of structures per se, to the best of our ability, but also try to keep our eyes open.
Because usually if they know the police check every now and then, I know
Right.
that they can't spend all their time doing that, but it would keep them from, they'd be afraid of that.
Sure.
That's what I was gonna ask. Or maybe Chief could answer, do the officers know of these structures so that periodically they check these structures?
I'll, Chief, certainly let Chief weigh in, but I would imagine that any inventory we have is probably in inspections currently, and certainly we can make sure that it's shared based off what we have.
Yeah, because that could be one way of a deterrent. If they know that the officers, are checking these, and it'd be kind of like sort of a good report so that we can see if these structures are being checked, and that way you can alleviate if some, I know you can't alleviate it, I shouldn't say alleviate it, but deter someone from going into these structures or taking down the boards that are being placed up,
Well, and I want to make sure that we have checks and balances in a couple of departments. Chief Wilhite, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, but I certainly think collectively staff can, take it from a couple of different angles and try to keep our eyes out.
Yeah, because as Ms. Robertson stated, most of the time, the transits are going to be moving when most people are asleep, and they're going to be moving right before you move to get up to go to work, so.
And we may
Yeah.
see an uptick, if we haven't already, in
Right.
some of that, just based off of people being displaced and just this kind of state of things in certain areas of the country, so.
And if that's the case, if we are having transits, I think as a town, we might need to try to help out, maybe find, point them in the right direction as far as how to give them help,
Sure, I definitely have some conversation and see the kind of best ways to
Right.
to work through that.
Okay.
Because even in the daytime, there would be evidence around that someone is sheltering in that place. All right, any other items for future agendas or future work sessions? And we had said that we would participate in a workshop on the Human Relations Board, but I guess we haven't had a chance to schedule that.
Well, this is my recommendation, that you get your board and your board members in place, and if, my suggestion would be if it's something we can do, sort of a collaborative workshop together with whoever's going to serve on the board, would be a good way to get everybody trained at the same time, if you will.
Okay. So we're talking about the first of next year then.
I would think at the earliest, just because I don't anticipate even the board itself coming together until after the holidays.
Okay. Okay. Reports from department heads. All right.
Department heads, anybody want to talk? I know Evan Johnston does.
I do, I'm here. I'm sorry, I didn't catch it the first time. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I just wanted to give a quick update on our Christmas holiday festivities. So we will do a drive-through Christmas parade this year, also referred to as reverse parades on December 12th at 10 a.m. on Division Street at the Rec Park. And for simplicity's sake, that's where the entries are parked and the spectators drive through the procession. We're also going to do two drive-in movies for Christmas, one at Hillcrest Park and one at the Winterville Rec Park. And we're going to do a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays video from the town with town staff and council members. And we're going to try to tie that in with a countdown to the tree lighting ceremony as well. So I'll email out some information more specific on that and try to get each of you to get a video for that. We're also planning a few other little things that we'll have some additional information on. Might try to do a few book readings and some little Christmas craft kits to give away. But that's what I got.
Evan, what about the sign out by the State Employees Credit Union? I remember at one point he was saying that he was going to donate so much time or space for community use.
I cannot remember that gentleman's name, but I will say they used to do a very good job about letting us put stuff on the board at no charge. And I know that, and we haven't attempted recently because our previous attempts, which we made a few, and I can't remember what specifically those were for, we were unable to get those up there at no charge, and we haven't had any luck since then.
His name is Robert Moore,
Yes.
and he lives.
Yes, that's right, thank you.
He works out of Kinston.
Yep.
I think a percentage of it's supposed to be for the town.
Well, I believe once the council chose not to move forward with his requested billboard ordinance, the town no longer got any real substantial time on that billboard.
I was just thinking that would be a good way to do some holiday greetings
Mr. Evans,
from town.
are you still there? Evan?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Yes, I'm looking at the calendar. Our next meeting is going to be on the 14th, and this activity that we're speaking of is going to be on the 12th. How we are going to make sure that, your plans on this? Because I understand that you're talking about a drive-by inside your vehicles. Are we still going to have people standing beside the street and we sort of like, throwing out the candy? And I mean, what kind of protocol you got behind or plans that you got behind this? Because by the time that you have this out of the next meeting, it's going to be on the 14th. That's what I'm looking at. And this is going to be on the 12th. So it will be over by the time we have our next meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I caught all that. So in a nutshell, how will it all work? So vehicular traffic, so people will participate, view the parade from their vehicles. They will drive down Division Street, entering from Ain Street, and then they will exit Division Street, heading, I guess, south on Church Street towards Laurie Ellis Road. All of the entries will be parked, and unfortunately, since it is a drive-through, you won't be able to throw candy because you just be pelting vehicles with candy, and then there would be a bunch of candy on the street that nobody would pick up. So again, the intention of it is to try to get people to stay in their vehicles as they go through the procession, so we don't have issues with mass gathering limitations, social distancing, mask wearing, all that stuff.
Okay, so you won't have no one standing beside the street at all? You shouldn't?
No, sir, because all of the activity will take place on Division Street in the park, and it will be drive-through only.
That's correct.
So there won't be any distribution of candy at all?
No, ma'am.
There will not.
No bands?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Are we gonna have any bands?
No, not as of yet. We're waiting to hear back from, I believe, Aiden Grifton, but the ones South Central, Andy H. Conley, they are not either not traveling and/or not having marching band in its traditional sense right now because of COVID.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any success with the multipurpose building?
Ben?
Anything about that?
John, unmute. We have received an official decline from the property owners around the depot. So I have begun looking into some additional properties and trying to coordinate an appraisal on a few of those to come up with a fair market value on them, to understand better and to have conversations with council on potential offers for those properties.
Ben, before we do any official appraisals, we probably need to have a collective discussion to see if these are areas even council's interested in.
Certainly, I can provide a map for some further discussion and some additional info in addition to the map.
How much space are we looking at now?
I think if at all possible, and Evan, jump in if you see this differently, but I would think we would at least need to look at the acreage that we were hoping to procure in our other location, and I believe that was around, help me gentlemen, 15 acres, 15, 20 acres?
That's correct. We were looking at anywhere from 15 to 20. At one point, we had 23 acres is what we were targeting there.
Yeah, and again, the desire with that is so that we have land to do some additional things with in the future for potential phased growth above and beyond just a multi-purpose building on the site.
We would certainly encourage council, if you all have some specific areas in mind, please pass those along as well. We're disappointed that our initial location didn't really come to fruition, but we now seem to know that we need to move on and try to identify somewhere else.
While I'm unmuted, if I may, I have two items to discuss. One is just an update on the gravity sewer rehab project. We took bids on that project last week, but we only had received 2 bids, so we were unable to open them. Therefore, we have re-advertised and will accept bids. I believe it will be I'll have to check my calendar here to see exactly what date we will be. I want to say the 17th, if I'm not mistaken, on that. And at that time, we won't be limited to having to have 3 bids. We can open and see what the prices are at that time. Just a reminder, that's the project that was funded with SRF monies. It's a $3.5 million funding package. $500,000 was principal forgiveness, so we don't have to pay that back, and the remaining balance will be at 0% interest. Also, while I'm talking about funding requests, we received notice last week from Water Resources Development Grant Program regarding our application about Noble Canal Bank stabilization, and that project was not recommended for funding through that group. That was an application for a $180,000 project with $90,000 being committed from the town and requesting $90,000 in grant assistance. That project was denied.
And that was through what agency?
If you recall, during our Noble Canal basin-wide study, we had multiple phases of drainage improvements, but we also had the consultant identify and provide some quantities and illustrations of areas that could benefit from some stabilization efforts. And so we were looking to install some riprap along those areas that were the more severe erosion areas along that corridor from Mill Street down to Chapman.
Okay, but what agency did we apply through?
That was the Division of Water Resources. Water Resource Project Development Grant was that funding source.
Okay.
Mr. William, with the tight space that we have along that area that I'm speaking of, that you know where I'm speaking of at, do we almost receive enough tight space along the value of those properties equal up to $180,000?
Hold on, Councilman Moore. Let me come in there if I may. I'm having difficulty.
While Ben's coming, I can answer that question. I assure you, we do not receive enough tax money that would equate to that figure.
Anything close to it?
I don't know how many properties you would be including, but just the couple of houses in the church, no. The church doesn't pay taxes anyway.
Okay, but we got to look at the length of time also. We're talking about years. We're talking about over 30-some odd years. Now, if you add those 30 or 40 years up to the amount of taxes that has been paid.
I don't think it'll be close.
You don't think it'll be close?
No, sir.
And partly because that big piece of land next, across the, I call it ditch, from there is not developed. That big field is not developed.
That's the
And
only
then the
reason.
field on the other side, when you cross over by where that we're putting the new sewer thing, right? We're moving it across the street.
The Chapman Street pump station will be relocated.
Yeah.
We don't need
All that's empty land, so we don't have a lot of development in that area. And I think that part of the reason for that development not being there is the fact of that Nobel Canal.
Well, you've got a large part owned by church
Yeah,
too, and that's just not tax generating property.
yeah.
That entire field there is owned by,
Ben, you got to make
Is-
sure it's on to get close.
can you hear me?
Yes.
That entire field is owned by the church, and then the field where we are intending on locating the new church, Chapman Street pump station is owned by the folks that own the White's International business there. They have some future plans for that parcel as well. We're looking to have discussions with them for obtaining some of that for the pump station project. We've been in talks with them. And then also there's a large riparian buffer that goes along that parcel, along that feature as well, that has some hurdles, if you will, for development also.
Well, our goal is always to make sure that we can secure money, other ways besides in taxing our people. So I'm hoping that even though if we was turned down, that we still gonna keep going back to the well, and hopefully they'll break and maybe fund us,
Yes, sir. They have limited, their funding source has been a good one in the
Right.
past. They have been cut severely over the years. We've been working with Amin and his group on, we got money from them to conduct the study. We've gotten some money from them to do the Greenway study. We've requested money from them numerous times to do the stabilization, as well as some of the Noble Canal Railroad Street improvements. They have gone from what I used to term a quantity issue program to a more along the lines of quality. They have targeted more property acquisition, stream restoration projects, not the hardened stabilization type projects. The quantity project funding sources have been limited severely in the past, really decade. They've gotten away from a lot of those types of projects.
I mean, now that dust is settled, the election's over, did we contact our representatives to let them know that we were applying for this, because in one of the meetings that we had with them, that was one thing that they asked us when we were applying to state agencies for funds, to let them know, you know, that maybe they could, I guess, you know, a little letter or something to help us along with our applications for these funds.
Senator Davis and the Secretary, Environmental Secretary Michael Regan, have been aware of
Okay.
those projects. We even went over the entire study with them and some of those projects that we've been targeting.
Even with the church itself hold most of the property on the area, we have invested in other areas with churches that we have developed where they has not been developed, and we spent taxpayer money towards to assist them. I can't see why we can't help meet the need in that area there also. We're talking about $180,000.
Councilman,
And I know that to us, it sounds like a lot of money, but we have invested a lot more than that in other areas. I mean, in hoping that it will develop. I mean, even though it is developing, some of them are being developed at this time, but it wasn't no guarantee. But we invested. And I'm asking this board and in the town to at least consider to help that community, help that area out on that situation they got there that has been there for many, many years.
if I could just clarify, I'm not exactly sure when we talk about taxpayers' funds, and utilizing taxpayers' funds for what inevitably is a stormwater project, any funds that come towards a project for the Noble Canal would really need to come from stormwater funds. I just wanted to clarify that as y'all are talking about funding the project.
Right, but it's not always been that way, has it? I
Well,
mean, before we have started saving up for stormwater fund, where were the funds coming from?
It would have come from water or sewer, depending on, I'm not going to say that taxpayer funds have never been used, but if we want to appropriately use the money that we collect and for the purpose for which it's intended. So I just want to be clear that we would be recommending that certainly that's where any monies come from.
So at this time, I know that we don't have that type of fund inside our stormwater.
Well, we don't have it in really tax revenue either. So that would be where we would need to focus.
We need to focus on what?
Stormwater revenue.
Then we're speaking of an increase.
Either that or using every bit of the money we collect, or not every bit, more than half of the money we collect in a year's time to utilize for this project. That just means we would not be doing any other, or we would vastly reduce the work in other places in town, sinkholes, etc.
Now, the stabilization project, it covers that whole area. So we could do part of it, couldn't we?
When you say that whole area,
When you say bank stabilization, that covers the area from Mill Street to Chapman, or from Mill Street to the 4-lane?
It goes to Chapman. There are some areas along there that are having some severe erosion where the banks are unstable and have gotten vertical. Some of the vegetation has been undermined. You've got undercuts, been sloughing. So those were the targeted areas for this grant.
And that would be the $90,000 that the
Well,
town would commit.
it was estimated to be $180,000 to have a contractor, you know, and that was a consultant's estimate to have a contractor come in and do the proper grading and installation of the riprap along those corridors.
Because I'm thinking that we've done the basin study, and that was $100,000, am I correct?
If I recall,
I know.
that basin-wide study that studied the entire 300 acres and identified that $6 million worth of projects, that was a $70,000 study funded through that program that we paid $35,000 for.
But I'm thinking that if we keep on waiting, these things will become outdated. If we keep on waiting before we do anything to this area.
You mean the study itself would be outdated?
What are recommendations in that study?
No, man. So the interesting thing about that particular basin is it's pretty much already built out. So you're not going to have any other than the vacant lots there on Knox Street. That's about all that can be built within that basin.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, and actually from previous studies, not a lot's changed in terms of options.
That's correct.
What's changed is how much they cost.
Certainly, yeah. Yes, that is definitely true. But as far as the recommendations from that study for upsizing the undersized pipes along Railroad Street, figuring out the bottleneck under Railroad, fixing that culvert down to Mill Street, those solutions will still be the solution for the future. As the manager says, they will.
But the prices.
The price will go up, but I mean, that's.
I sort of like what you were saying. You know, if we have received what we asked for, and that means that we would have to pay half of it, the $90,000. Why don't we just? I mean, we would have to pay the $90,000 if we have received the award. Why don't we just do half of it, and then maybe we can do the other half probably another year?
And I'm still bothered by the same thing I've been bothered by all along. You know, I know that we had to get permission from the Army Corps of Engineers and all these different things to even install that. But, you know, when you can go to one area of town and I can go there and see bank stabilization done, and I know that there's been an area of town that's been asking for this for years and years, and I see nothing done, it bothers me greatly. You know, it bothers me. I feel that there's a priority given to one area over the other area, and that's where my unrest comes from. That's where these questions come from. That something could have been done. You know, I mean, if we got the stabilization thing going now, then apparently we're to the point that we can do something. But the hindrance now is money. Am I understanding it right? We could do this bank stabilization, but the problem now is money.
I think for the challenge, since I've been involved in the project, has always been money.
Well, when this project first started, it was that this was a blue line stream, and the Army Corps of Engineers, and
that's why
all
you
these
can't
things
tile
like
it.
that tied it up, you know.
Well, it's also, if you'll recall, the request since I've been here was to tile that portion of Noble Canal. And we finally got through Army Corps, all of those, and because it's a blue line stream and for other reasons, they will not allow that. So bank stabilization was always on the table, but it just wasn't the preferred option for council. So for a lot of years, we worked on trying to get permission to tile that portion of the ditch, but the federal government nor the state government's going to allow, they're not going to approve us and issue us permits. They've told us they would not allow that.
But we can do bank stabilization.
Bank stabilization's
And so
always been an option that they've said they could get on board for. They've just not been in a position to consider that high enough on their list of projects to fund.
Okay.
Did I say that incorrectly?
You're spot on.
It amounts to money.
Correct. It has always honestly been that it was going to cost a good sum of money, that there was just no easy way to pay for it.
Now, in Magnolia Ridge, you know where I'm talking about, where everything comes together and it's a small little ditch that was falling apart. How much did it cost the town to put those big rocks to stabilize those banks? What was the cost of that project? Or did the developer pay for the cost?
So in that particular instance, it was kind of a partnership. the developer on the opposite side from the resident, we had them go in, acquire the easements necessary, and do some sloping back of the banks on the undeveloped side. Then town staff went in on severely less slopes and installed the riprap along the banks, leaving the channel open. That one over there is not a blue line. That section was not a blue line, so we were able to do that without having to request a permit from the state or the Corps. Over here, it would certainly require, one, from a manpower standpoint, that it would take a lot of our guys who do a lot of other things all day, every day, to go tackle something like that. But it takes someone who does this for a living to get the bank stable, get the slopes correct, apply the fabric, apply the large boulders, and then fill in with that smaller riprap in there.
So it would be more than what you did over there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I can go back and look and see. It would take a little digging to figure out how much that cost, but a fraction was the cost over in that area that we're talking about compared to the Noble Canal solution.
I'd like to know how much it
Certainly.
costs.
Yeah, I can look into
Because
that.
it really bothered me when I went over there and I saw those banks stabilized because of the construction on the other side. And the people over there in that area, they were not happy at all. When I say the older residents, I'm talking about the established houses there, because they still are seeing their banks erode. They're seeing the like I said, I call it a ditch because it's kind of a straight thing. They saw that they're losing land to the back of their property all along there because of erosion, and the fact that it's like water is directed from both developments to come to a V and then come down, so.
And if I recall too, over there, what we also had, it's what we call running sand over there. It's in a floodplain over there. And what was happening, there was a cut that was in the channel, and there was a large pool there, and there was a concern from the resident over grandchild safety.
Right.
It wasn't as much of a sloughing of the bank as an erosion creating a pool, which in a stream is a natural, they call it a riffle pool sequence. You have riffles and then you have a pool and it eats out and then it goes on down. But that was the case there. So what we were trying to do was to provide some rocks, and we were allowed to put it in the channel because it's a non-buffered feature, or it was a non-jurisdictional feature, that were able to slow down those erosive velocities. In this case, we would not be able to put, the permit would not allow us to put rocks within the channel. It would allow us to stay, put them on the bank to keep that churning from eroding and undercutting and then having the sloughing. But unlike over at Magnolia Ridge, we would not be able to put anything in the channel. But we don't have that same problem over here as we did over there.
And as a reminder, we did attempt to get that blue line designation removed in the beginning, but that is just not something that the state nor the federal government was willing to do.
I remember that, and I remember making contact on a personal level with the legislators, even with Butterfield. I wrote the Army Corps of Engineers and even the president, and tried to get it removed and get it looked at. And everybody wanted to know what is it about this, and I guess they were thinking that it was like a lake, but that it was a ditch, and so anyway, but.
If this right here was awarded, it would have been a grant, is that correct?
The funding that we
The
applied for,
funding.
we're just declined. Yes, sir. It was a dollar for dollar match on a grant.
Okay, and that 180,000, if it was awarded to us, well, half of it, how much will it cover? What would it cover, that 180,000 that we?
Well, it would have been $90,000 grant, $90,000 town of Winterville cost share.
Okay, that would be
It-
100.
It would have covered the estimated cost, estimated by a consultant, for what a contractor would charge the town to go in and do the proper grading and installation of that stabilization stone along the banks. So we would have had to have designed the project, put it out for bids like we do for those large types of projects, and see what the contractor pricing would have been.
But that already have been done before, is that correct?
There has not been any detailed design work done on that to have construction plans for a contractor to bid on. I mean, we have some design, I mean, some areas, some quantities, but as far as detailed survey of the banks, that has not been conducted.
Okay, my last question then, how did we come up with $180,000?
During the Noble Canal Drainage Basin study that was paid for, we asked the same consultant, since they were familiar with the area and very good at stormwater design, to delineate those areas along that corridor that had that severe erosion, and to, based on bank height and linear footage and multiplying that by 2, since there's 2 sides, to come up with a quantity of stone and then estimate construction cost for installation thereof.
Is that what they said they probably would do it for? Or
This
it
is a
was
consultant,
just a consultant?
not the actual
Okay.
bulldozer, backhoe, excavator contractor. That'd be up to their judgment during the bidding process.
So we actually don't know exactly what it will cost then.
I mean, those engineers are pretty good at what they do. They don't want to be the low bidder, but they don't want to blow it so high out of the water that they're.
About 180. Could it be done in portion like we were speaking of?
Certainly, you could chop up each of those little areas. We'd have to, we could come back and try to prioritize which ones are worse than the others and target those incrementally and present that to council for direction.
I would like for us to look at it when we do our budget for 2021, very closely.
We'll get those estimates before that time.
Yeah, but in the meantime, yeah, you can get some estimates, make sure that we know exactly what we're speaking of.
Okay.
I mean, just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I'd say my piece.
Right, I've been out there and I walked it with Ben, I walked it with Travis also, and I looked at it. And I'm more inclined, because money is so tight with everybody now, and funding agencies are basically, they don't have the funds that they normally would have. So I'm more inclined maybe to sit down with people in that area. If you're talking, same thing you did in Magnolia Ridge, partnership at the church is willing to, talk with us and see if they can help, because it's going to benefit them and anybody else down that line. I mean, we got to start looking at new ways of, doing business, I think. I just don't want to be creating another tax for someone, if you understand where I'm coming from.
How much money did we return to the general fund this year?
Anthony, are you with us?
Because I know, like the housing program, some things didn't happen that were supposed to have happened.
But again, we'd be looking at stormwater money.
I'm
Give me just 1 second, I can get that number for you.
I'm looking at total money.
Right, but
Asking about-
when you say general fund, that usually means on the general fund side of things. So,
How much money was turned to fund balance? I'm sorry. How much?
You have the fund balance for the stormwater fund, correct?
correct.
I'm looking at both of them. The stormwater probably didn't have any because we usually use all of that, right?
Well, not necessarily, so,
Okay.
but that's, again, I can't stress strongly enough, that's where any monies would need to come from, is stormwater.
Okay. Well, how much was returned today?
I think Anthony's looking.
Or did we have any to turn over?
I think Anthony's getting that answer.
Yeah, it'll take me just a second. It's a large document.
And with the Magnolia Ridge project, the developer partnered with the town to do that, right?
I don't know that he would term it a partnership.
Ben?
But-
I know he did some things.
That's right, that's
I
right.
know he did some things
Well,
because,
it was because that would have been, he owned and was planning to develop the next phase of that subdivision. And prior to any subdividing and occupancy of that area, we went ahead and worked with him on getting those. And he also was able to do some of that work on the portion of the subdivision that had not been built. There were a few houses downstream of that location that we were able to acquire some easement and do the sloping downstream as well.
I haven't heard anything from those people that lived in the area since then, so.
They're
I think
still
the
not-
Last time I was over there, you were with me.
They're still not happy,
Oh, really?
or some are still not happy.
Okay.
Well, you know, due to having to maintain and mow along there, there was some question and confusion about, there was some mowing that was done for access to a water and sewer easement that goes through there, but the ditch maintenance mowing had not been done yet, so we got that cleared up with them.
If I may, this is Anthony. The fund balance in the stormwater or the unrestricted fund balance is $591,515. With regard to the general fund, we had a large reduction in that this year as we anticipated. I want to give you the total fund balance is $8,831,000.
That's unrestricted or just total?
Total. Give me just a second to get the unrestricted. Financial statements present that differently.
I know.
Yeah, unassigned is 7.1 million. For the general fund.
Thank you, Anthony. So if I understood you correctly, the unrestricted, quote-unquote, fund balance in stormwater was $591,515?
It's 591.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right, 591, 515.
Okay. I figured the 515 part,
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What is our plans for that?
The unrestricted,
The 5 for the,
you can call it a rainy day fund, or if you want to just target this one area right here. There were 5 projects in that Noble Canal Basin study that totaled $6 million. With staff's help and forethought, we were able to get $1.1 million paid for through a grant. That leaves us, $5 million worth of work. We could easily, it still wouldn't cover fixing the problem we have up from Robinson down to the store along Railroad Street to fix the undersized and failing stormwater pipes along there, as well as losing the curb and gutter along that corridor. So it'd pay for maybe half of that.
The holes are getting bigger.
Yes, sir. We continue to battle that with rock on a regular basis.
Somebody's going to step in those in front of the library soon.
I've driven in front of the library.
Yep.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a whole nother different basin.
Right.
So, that's another thing. That's one basin that has that problem. We've got basins all over, and that value, those numbers were not included, did not include the the 180,000 for that bank stabilization corridor through there.
All right. Any other questions? Any other, department head as far as, things about that? As far as
Can I say one more thing on this right here, and then I'll be done with it. You told me it's 591,000, and we talking about 180. If we do the whole thing, 180, you're still talking about 410,000 left. But it shows that we are doing something. It would be money used towards a problem that we have. And actually, you say water flows out downstream, and that's one of the reasons why we started down here at this end on the upgrading of that blue line stream, and hopefully to migrate on downstream.
Typically, in stormwater projects, you work from downstream upstream. You don't want to open up something upstream and then hit a bottleneck down. So that's why we targeted Chapman Street was the last thing before you get to the 4-lane Highway 11, which is DOT's issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we targeted that. The next spot would be Mill Street and the culvert that comes up from Mill to Railroad Street. Then the next piece would be dealing with the bottleneck that's under the railroad tracks. And then we had chopped that up into multiple phases. And then the big phase would be fixing the undersized and failing network headed north along Railroad Street up to W.H. Robbins. Those are all undersized, failing, they may be one, they may be both, they may be one or the other, or they may be both, undersized or failing. Piping network issues. The Noble Canal issue is an erosion issue. And I know that there may be some dirt falling in, but there are no structures that are in danger of falling in or anything like that along that corridor. Whereas along this area, we are losing curb and gutter and streets. We're having flooding issues. So if I were to prioritize, it's those types of projects that have a higher priority and a more return on investment, if you will.
When you named it, did that, it seemed like you did skip over the section from Chapman to Mill, right?
Well, in that plan, that was not part of the infrastructure water carrying capacity improvements that were targeted in that study.
And is it because it's an open ditch?
It is. An open ditch carries more water than a piped ditch. So for instance, in order to carry that same amount of water, the 300 feet that we just replaced at Chapman Street cost $1.1 million. That's 300 feet.
Mm-hmm.
That run of canal is much longer than 300 feet. So just whatever that distance is times 1.1 million.
That's one thing that they made clear to us in all the studies and things that we've done of this canal, that because it is an open ditch.
It carries.
And like I said before, I lived in that area all my life, and so know about water over in that area.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, I know it's incised cut down over time.
Because the section from Mill Street to Railroad,
certainly,
it's got pipes in it.
That's correct.
And okay. Any other questions or concerns about this project? All right. I've got a question about minimum housing. Okay. Since we didn't do the housing project last year, repair project, I know we can't anticipate what's going to happen next spring. We pray that lots of good things happen next spring. and that we will be able to do it. Will that money carry over?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And,
I don't think we've got enough applications currently that would utilize, last year's allocation and this year's allocation, but yes.
all right. As far as reports from department heads, are there any other department heads that would like to report? Cemetery, how's that progressing, or we at a standstill with that?
We're not at a standstill. We've got staff in-house working on trying to GIS on paper and combine what's there currently with the new portion. But in terms of getting out in the field yet and doing anything, we haven't done that.
I know there been lots of, unfortunately, citizens, and they've been having to.
I would want to expand it until they move the dump.
Well,
Because the dump is really, you feel that way about your dead people, that you want to dump beside them, that's a disgrace. I told my wife, I got 2 plots there, I said, I don't be buried beside a dump.
I understand.
I didn't want the surf to be a dump. That's what we think about
Well,
dead people.
It beats being buried beside an electric station, doesn't it? Down North Wonderful, those people are right there by that electric substation.
You don't have the noise that you have at the dump. When my mother-in-law was buried, you couldn't hear a word the preacher said. I was sitting on the front row.
But
The
that's
county
something,
said it'd take care of it, and the county did not take care of the problem.
well, I think that's something we need to work on, because I've been down there several times,
Yeah.
and the police were not there to stop the traffic. And I've been down there a couple of times when the police were there. So that's something I think that we can improve upon, Mr. Moore. I really do, because it does take the dignity away from that service.
I agree. It's definitely going to take the county buy-in, though, because they've got to do their part on their side. So we can certainly reinstitute those conversations.
And I'm wondering, could we get some signs made and put out there, dump closed?
Yeah, it's not our facility, so,
But the graveyard is ours.
correct.
They're
So
paying
you
us
can't
how much a
get to
year?
the dump.
Are they paying us $1,000 a year, maybe?
Maybe, but there's a long-term lease between the town and the county on that facility, so we'd have to,
I don't think it's a lease.
yes, sir, there is.
There is?
It was a 99-year lease, I believe.
Is there an easement attached to that lease?
That dump was,
I have
I've
no
seen it.
idea.
that
I've
dump was
seen it.
belonged to the town of Winterville. That was our dump. That where they're at now is the town of Winterville. owns
Correct,
that.
but it's no longer ours. We lease it to the county.
Have you seen that lease?
I have seen it, and we have discussed this
Oh, really?
collectively.
Okay.
I will pull it back out, though, because I'm going to have to
Okay.
search for it.
I mean, I think that people would observe, would respect that a funeral's going on if they knew it before they turned. But when
I
they
think-
turn in, they'll see the funeral, the funeral or the committal going on. In most cases, whatever ceremony is going on down there, it's not very long at all. People are there and gone. But I'm wondering, we couldn't put up any sign saying.
I don't think
dump
we
closed?
can shut the
No.
dump down. We'd have to make sure that we're in line with the county, but I will certainly reach back out to see kind of where we are. I think there have been some personnel staffing changes and whatnot, so I'll have to reinstitute that, and I will do my best to uncover that lease again. I'm sure I've got it.
But a lot of times, well, the times that I've been there and seen people going, it's like they turn and they say, oh, they realize what's going on, and if it was a way out for them, or they wouldn't be in there at that time. They would respect that, and I think they will.
If you'll recall, we talked about it because we had lots of discussions with the county about if we close this dump facility, where another facility would go. They basically told us there would be no facility reopened in this area. So then we talked about the effect that would have on citizens who use that facility.
I'm talking about for an hour,
No, I understand.
30 minutes or something like that, not for an extended period. Okay. All right, any other reports? from department heads? If not, we'll go to our announcements.
Okay, let me go through the announcements. Town offices will be closed Wednesday for Veterans Day. If people are asking about the sanitation schedule for this week, it was posted today, so they can see that on the website or social media, or they can give me a call. It's not too bad this week because of when the holiday is. Planning and Zoning Board meeting be next Monday, the 16th at 7 p.m. Recreation Advisory Board be next Tuesday, the 17th, at the Operations Center. Board of Adjustment meeting is Tuesday, November 7th, 7 p.m. And then town office be closed for Thanksgiving on Thursday, November 26th, and Friday, November 27th. Thank you.
Okay. Our reports from our town attorney, mayor, town council, and town manager.
Thank you. I have no report tonight.
Mr. Moore?
No comment.
Ms. Hines?
Just want to say happy Thanksgiving, pre-early happy Thanksgiving to everyone in the room and to the staff. Hope everyone has a happy and safe Thanksgiving.
Mr. Moore? I'm sorry. Excuse me, I'm used to sitting beside the mayor.
Just say thank you to our veterans, for Veterans Day, and wish all of our staff a happy Thanksgiving.
I'd just like to repeat the same also. Honor to our veteran, and hope everybody have a safe holiday. Also, I'd like to thank the staff who kept the drive on, kept pushing, recognizing the importance of repairing that place right there on Beacon Drive in front of the new pool. I just want to say thank you, staff, because it rides a lot better than it did before.
I'd like to thank the voters, poll workers, the campaign committees, and everybody that helped us have such a successful election cycle this year. Everybody was out there, saw people out there, some folks every day out there, and everybody was talking and just doing what we do when we have an election here in Winterville. And I'm very proud to live in a community where we can have differences and still stand out and talk to each other and respect each other. And our election process here in Winterville, I saw the long lines, saw the short lines. So I do appreciate everybody that participated in that democratic process. Do wish everybody a happy and safe Thanksgiving. I'm glad our Halloween went well in our community. All right, manager.
I just wanted to let everybody know that we survived our first week with our partial reopening. Didn't have many folks come in, but it is working well thus far in terms of having folks man the door. We'll continue to do that. And again, for everybody's knowledge, we are open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from 8 to 12, and Thursday, Friday, 1 to 5. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Any other comments? Any other business?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Hines, seconded by Mr. Smith to adjourn the meeting. Poll.
Councilman Moore?
Yes.
Councilman Hines?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Robertson?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Absolutely.
Councilman Moy?
Yes.
With that said, we stand all in favor of adjournment. Thank you.